Hemel and Derek Beaumont can negotiate more reasonable figures that allow other clubs to benefit from them, to help get back going again, then share those actual ideas with people.
And the idea that the RFL don't want the and Super League don't want it to come back, I think that's complete rubbish. Of course they want the game to come back in whatever form. Most of the people that work at the RFL are die-hard rugby league people. They'd quite happily go and watch Featherstone under eights against Lee under eights if they thought there was a chance of safely getting a game on.
Well, there's a lot of people who work within the RFL who aren't necessarily attached to a Super League club either, in terms of their viewing interest. They come from community clubs, they come from semi-pro clubs, they come from disbanded clubs that no longer exist. They're not just, all Leeds Rhinos fans, or however people might want it to be believed.
Well, to be fair, at one point they've probably been accused of being a fan of pretty much every club, haven't they? Gone round.
Basically, they're Toronto fans, Warrington fans, Wigan fans. Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, you just rotate them. I reckon they've just got a big flipper board up in Red Hall, and they just spin it on a Monday morning, and it says, "This week we are all Hemel Stags fans," or whatever.
Well, yeah, I think that's more the old RFL board. We're all Hemel/Ottawa fans, but we'll see. We'll see. June
the 25th, then. So a decision about when and if the Championship and League One seasons should resume has been again delayed. A video conference involving clubs outside the Super League failed to reach a conclusion, despite being presented with reports from two working groups set up to investigate cost, logistics and revenue opportunities. Now clubs have been invited to submit their views via a survey, and they'll be considered by the Rugby Football League Board on the 6th of July. The interesting thing about this meeting is it has been reported in some outlets that Mr. Derek Beaumont did not bother to turn up. I mean, really? If he's that exercised about getting it on, he should show some personal effort to do so.
He's probably putting all his personal effort into lobbying in the background with the people who are already on his side anyway, rather than trying to come to something that can be sort of more collaborative and bringing other people along with him that aren't already with him. But I wanted you to tell us sort of any insight you had on what's been going on in this area, obviously, because you have a volunteer association with a League One club, but obviously you don't work with the club during this time. But I didn't know if you'd heard sort of how it's looking there. And one of the things I didn't understand really that makes this more complicated is, are the Championship and League One being looked at to have the same solution rather than being looked at as separate things that need separate solutions?
I think it's because they come under the auspices of the RFL. Those two competitions have been lumped in together, whereas I think it probably does need splitting out. I think generally the Championship, you've got a more realistic chance of coming back, but in terms of League One, I don't see where it makes sense, partly because of
other than Newcastle.
And the West Wales Raiders, who apparently reportedly also want to get back. Who knows why? Maybe they just really enjoy standing next to the sticks, having a drink, or having just conceded.
If they come back but other clubs don't, they get to win games on technicalities. They could have a great season.
Yeah.
No, I think every credit to any club who wants
a commemorative shirt done this time.
I think there is, credit to every club who's working hard to get a resumption at this level, but it's so complicated at that level because you've got full-time clubs, you've got part-time clubs, you've got clubs with an entrenched support base, clubs with a sliver of a support base, clubs who've invested a lot in playing squads, clubs who've just pulled a playing squad together as best as they can. There's all different things affecting these, and the Championship.
And you've got players, for a lot of them, who travel quite some distance to get to training. Exactly. So that's another factor to consider. And then you've got the fact that quite a number of players will be key workers as well, so there'll be issues that are in there, or they'll have family members who are, so that'll cause further exposure and potential problems. I mean, it's a thing. And actually, is our clubs in a better position by not playing, because you don't open the risk up? So by not having to pay players for semi-professional teams, are they in a better position than if they have to play games and play them? It's a really difficult balancing act.
And it's all being kind of strung out on the gamble that 2 or 3 clubs have made. The short-term gamble that 2 or 3 clubs have made. There are other clubs who've made long-term investments who will want to resume so that they can see the progress being made with their long-term investments. But there's other clubs who've made short-term plans and I don't know. It's just too complicated. Everything I ever look at with our sport in this country, where I try to come up with solutions about things, the way the current championship is structured is just an absolute roadblock to every idea you think of. And it's because of the part-time, full-time split. And this is why I think the only solution, medium to long term, is to say to clubs, do you want to be full-time? If not, you can't get promoted into Super League. If so, let's try and find a way of building a Super League competition that has you in it. But right now, gambling on those things doesn't make sense to me.
No, and we haven't got much money to start with as a sport, and we're going to have even less, realistically, because everybody's
280k less per Super League club. They're not going to want to see they're going to want to recoup some of that from any trickle down.
Yeah, exactly. The central distribution is going to be lower, and the unfortunate timing in terms of the TV deal that it's up at the end of next year. So we're looking at renegotiating that. We're not going to have a lot lying around, so we need to, whatever we can do in terms of saving money and making sure we've got as many clubs survive it. I still think that once costs start to bite and things come in and any restarters agree, I fear we will lose clubs. And I kind of think, is this almost, in a way, is it what we got too many clubs, and will this be almost a survival of the fittest that sees some go to the wall and not be able to be replaced?
But as we talked about with some of the costs, some of the people, the losses in Super League, it's not necessarily the weakest that are hurting the most at this time. In some ways or other ways. I just think I'd really love, for a meaningful season that has everyone on the same footing that they went into this season with. But we're never going to have that now. So really, the championship clubs need to get together and find a way of resuming competition without an obsession with promotion. Because guess what, guys? We've said it all along. You're not all going up.
No, six clubs can't go up.
Yeah.
So they need to work around that, and it's unfortunately it's been manipulated to come back to old arguments and old agendas, hasn't it? That's the problem. They weren't happy with the settlement of where it was ended up, and so they're almost using this as a smokescreen to try and get back. And
we end up then with, we're airing our dirty laundry in public and all of that sort of stuff, and I think there's some chairmen out there who've done a really good job of trying to show a united front and saying, why do we have to bring it always back round to the problem when we should be celebrating the good things as well, and that sort of stuff. And I think credit to everyone who's got Rugby League's wider interests at heart over what's happening at their own individual club right now.
Yeah, and I think if we can get something back, that's great. But if we only get the Super League back, and then let's have a time where we celebrate that. And there's also then opportunity for the lower leagues to come back earlier next year, because they will have been more rested, and they could almost fill a gap in the schedule. So you could have a month of the season running with uninterrupted, no other coverage. It'd just be that lower league feature, and you could make a real celebration of it and have a real spotlight on the competitions. And actually that might be in a World Cup year in particular, that might be a really good way of kick-starting a feel-good factor about it.
Yeah.
So, you could have a month's gap where you just play Championship, League One, possibly some Challenge Cup in there. You just have that before the Superliga comes back because of the late finish.
Well, let's get on to the Super League, because on the 26th of June, the announcement that we've all been waiting for, that the 2020 Super League season will resume on the 2nd of August, more than 4 months after it was suspended because of the coronavirus pandemic. 3 matches will be played on that date at one venue behind closed doors. That venue is yet to be announced. The revised schedule will contain a further 15 rounds of fixtures with a 14 playoff and a grand final to follow. So that playoff system basically takes one team out of the playoffs but 2 rounds out of the playoffs to shorten that down. The grand final is going to be in late November. We don't know the date yet because we're waiting to see when Old Trafford will be available, and then potentially other stadiums will be available. Remaining games will be played at a small number of neutral venues until government directives.
Do you think it'll be at Featherstone?
The Challenge Cup final might be at Featherstone, but
yeah.
On the 2nd of August, Hull KR, which actually Featherstone, credit them for that. They've always tried to find a way to help the sport in that way.
Yeah.
On the 2nd of August, Hull KR will play Toronto Wolfpack. Champion St Helens will face Catalan Dragons, and Huddersfield will take on Leeds. All matches that were postponed before the season was suspended. A full round of fixtures will follow during the weekend of the 8th and 9th of August. That's a week earlier to see all the teams than we were expecting that to happen. Clubs have also agreed to kick off the 2021 season at a later date than the traditional opening weekend of February, the recently traditional opening weekend of February, and it's expected to kick off on the Thursday the 18th of February next year instead. So like you say, it opens up a bit of a gap for a couple of weeks of Championship maybe, Tim, like you say, to get some Sky coverage and that sort of stuff. EFC78JU said, I cannot wait until the Betfred Super League restarts in August. Nice nod to the sponsors there, EFC. And I'm in that camp too. I can't wait. I think it's exciting. What about you, Tim?
Yeah, very much. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to actually getting something that we can talk about, that's real, that we know, that's local to it. Obviously, we're not going to be able to be there for probably most of this, if not all of this campaign. We don't know how long the whole behind closed doors thing is going to be going on for, but realistically, I'd be surprised if there was anything before October.
Yeah, that's sort of been the expectation all along, though some people are now starting to feel a little bit more optimistic about the idea of getting some fans back in some stadiums in maybe September, so we will see on that. The triple header to start things off, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think that's where you've got to pivot now. You've now got a television product, so anything you can do to make it a television event, such as the triple header, is a good idea. I think 3 spread out games wouldn't be working in the same way. I think as long as you've got a facility where multiple changing rooms, etc., and good distancing is possible.
It's got to be at Headingley, aren't there? Because there's changing rooms on each side of the ground, and there's the cricket ones.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always read it as Headingley. I'd be very surprised if it was anywhere else, especially as Leeds are playing. So I'd be, you'd expect it to be there, and it's probably one of the most, the facilities that can cope with it the best. I mean, they can always use the ample conferencing facilities as well as additional areas or media facilities or place to spread out. There's plenty. There's the hotel you can spread out into as well.
Yeah, exactly. It does seem to make total sense, that venue. I'm excited about the lineup as well. I know it's coincidence because it's all just postponed or delayed games or what have you, but Hull KR against Toronto, this is 2 teams that need to win a game to get even if there's no relegation, they still need to find some way of getting some momentum and interest in their sides. So they need this. Saints against Catalan Dragons, these are 2 star-studded lineups. It'll be the return of Jammer, and then on the other side of the fence, you've got some big names, Tompkins, Maloney, people like that. And Catalans were playing really well before the break, so that could be exciting. And then, even though Wigan are top of the table and Castleford are sort of joint on points behind them on points difference, Huddersfield and Leeds actually have the best points per game ratio so far in Super League. So arguably the 2 form sides before the break.
I mean, if you were Yeah, if you were designing this isn't a bad triple header, is it? I mean, there's not a game there you think, oh, I won't bother with that one. Or you think